and welcome to Legal Practice Intelligence.
Thanks for having me, Dave.
Mate, always a pleasure. So why don't you give yourself a bit of an introduction to the audience and subscribers, a bit more about who you are, what you do, your background. I mean, lots of people know you already.
Yeah, well, maybe. Yeah, look, I guess, hi. So my name's Stewart Rasmussen. I've been in the legal tech industry for going on 12 plus years now. That started way back when in the UK, working for a consultancy firm implementing iManage for law firms. So I actually got that job in the GFC. So I had no idea about legal technology, never walked into a law firm, and took the first job I could get. And 12 years later, I've stayed. So from my perspective, we've started Syncly, really launched this month or a couple of months ago. We sort of started bringing on clients, and the journey has been one of bootstrapping. I'm sort of wearing the jumper today to represent, I guess, my personal journey, which is working.
Yeah, so tell us about the jump. Tell us about the jump. We had a great discussion as before. It's a great story.
Yeah, right. Well, like I said, everyone has a unique kind of story to tell when they start a business, and mine was, I worked as a handyman. So born and bred down in Tassie. I spent a lot of my days on the farm in my dad's tool shed, so sort of managed to pick up a few practical skill sets there. And yeah, I was out bootstrapping Syncly while also fixing toilet seats and leaky roofs. And I think from that perspective, I have very vivid memories of sitting on top of a roof, cleaning a gutter for some elderly people down here in Sydney, taking phone calls with global vendors about what Syncly was going to do and how we could work together. So, that's my story. Pretty proud of it, and here we are today launching Syncly. So I can't complain.
Excellent. And I think Chris as well. Chris Ogram is actually, so you're working with Chris, who's actually a well-known person in the industry as well.
Yep. So Chris and I met way back, right back at the start, right? When I took that first job in the GFC in London. Chris was working at that company. So, I can stem this all the way back to the start. So together we bring, and he's been in this industry for a bit longer than me. So together we bring about that 25 years of legal technology, legal consulting experience. Chris is amazingly talented, both from a deeply technical perspective, but also from a business perspective. He's able to very deeply and intimately understand those legal processes and a lot of the challenges that go on with implementing technology. So yeah, I guess together we cover both bases, right? Chris on the tech side and me on the marketing and sales side. So we've got a lot of it covered.
Brilliant, absolutely brilliant. And so what do you guys do? So give us the audience a bit of a rundown of what you do.
Yep. All right. So Syncly is a no-code integration platform. So really we haven't invented the category, and I don't want to piggyback on no-code too much, but if we were to sort of take a more industry agnostic term, it's the integration platform as a service, or IPaaS. And the most commonly known platform that fits in that category is Zapier. Yep. So, at the early stages of a business, I guess, the way I give people familiarity is I'm saying we're building Zapier for legal, which is really just a way of saying we're going to build connectors and connectors for all of your common legal technology platforms, the big ones, iManagers and your HiQs, all the way down to sort of the newer breed of technology coming out into the space. Those connectors are independent, so they can be introduced into an integration workflow on our platform. That integration workflow can be any combination of connectors in any order. And the purpose of a workflow in Syncly is to migrate or move data between systems, either one way out to another system, or both, or dual synchronization, two-way synchronization. So we move data for law firms.
I mean, that's incredible. I mean, so what you guys are doing is you guys are like the Zapier for legal.
Yep, that's exactly what we're doing.
Brilliant. Okay. And market-wise, which part of the market are you actually mainly working with these days?
So we primarily work with the sort of mid to top tier law firms, but we're going very quickly down to a lot of the smaller law firms. I mean, I guess the benefit of no code integration is that you don't need, it doesn't require you to have a large budget. So while we're launching in that sort of mid-tier space, it's equally as applicable. In fact, our first client was a global bank. Very first client was a global bank. We can't mention the names of because we're under certain legal contracts, but they're using us across 5 continents of the world. They've already moved hundreds of terabytes of data with us. So it goes from the very top, down to some smaller law firms.
And I mean, geographs, you're working mainly in Australia, UK, US. Where are you finding the work you're doing mainly at the moment?
Yep. Well, look, being Aussie, myself, and Chris is English by birth, but lives in Australia. We're really launching down here in Australia. We know this market intimately, but we do see, we're already sort of in the progress of launching into the UK. My wife's English, my business partner, Chris, is English. Chris and I have primarily worked for UK software companies our entire lives. So it's a very natural second home for us there in the UK. So they're the two markets we're focusing on.
Yeah, no, it's definitely a great market. And so, what are you seeing? I mean, I guess there's a lot of talk at the moment about talking to different sort of CIOs and other folks in the industry about how they're sort of spending money and what they're doing. I mean, I guess why is integration like popping its head up now as being like one of the key areas that people are spending money on?
Yeah, it's interesting. I think the legal tech is quite seasonal, right? And I think every year there's something that becomes a top priority for CIOs and law firms in general. Do see integration becoming one of those. And look, I think primarily that's led by two things. One is obviously the economic environment that we're in at the moment, which is focusing on making sure that we're not spreading ourselves too thin across lots of investments and only getting 10% benefit out of all of those investments. I think there's now a consolidation, not necessarily a consolidation like from more tech to less tech, but make the most of what you've currently got. I think in the last couple of years, the legal technology market has been spoilt for choice. It certainly had seen more investment than it ever has in the history of legal technology in the last 24 months. And primarily that's led by legal tech startups. And I think there's a lot of adoption. So now it's about sort of, we've got the adoption. How do we leverage our data across those platforms and making sure we're not, creating data silos or compliance risks with our security and data.
So, I mean, one of the areas that I've sort of, I guess, been exposed to more recently is around the mid-market. So that mid-market sort of around the world and things like that. And I guess, they've got HR solutions, they've got marketing solutions, they've got practice management solutions, document management solutions, portals, a number of different sort of things. So is that so would they plug your tool into that sort of scenario and actually would just make everything work, pass that across all different sort of platforms?
Yeah, look, I'd love to say that it makes everything work, but no, I mean, so you would think of Zapier as that sort of middleware piece of software, right? And so Syncly is no different. It sits right in the middle. And as we bring more and more connectors on, we will span the practice management system. We're already covering the document management system. We'll go into the collaboration, the analytics. We'll go in across all the categories of legal technology. And what we do is we sit there in the middle. And a common thread across not just law firms, but in-house legal as well, is the creation of documents. They store and house a lot of data for their clients and create a lot of data for their clients. So those documents move in and out of various systems. And basically what we're saying is, it's quite hard for IT departments to maintain visibility of where their data is. A document in a law firm might exist in 6 different locations, and the intent is obviously always to sort of make sure that there's a system of truth or a record of truth for some of those documents. So Syncly moves the data around and then make sure it always comes back home where it needs to be. So you're not creating those data silos for yourselves. And configuration wise, is it more off the shelf or is it bespoke? Is it more bespoke? I guess where does it sort of sit in the scheme of things? Yeah, great question. In my experience, I'm a big advocate for the user experience side of technology, huge advocate for the user experience side of technology. And so we are creating, a no consultancy requirement tool, right? And so what you're doing is you're getting Syncly. We're a cloud-based business, completely hosted in Microsoft Azure. And so you can get access to Syncly and create your first workflow within an hour, and sort of have data moving across certain connectors. The intent is certainly not to have any requirement for setup fees, onboarding fees, none of that sort of stuff. It's completely self-service. And so I guess in the next sort of 12 months, just broadly, because just talking from a broader sort of sense of legal tech and where it's going, what do you sort of see happening in the next 12 months in the industry itself? I think we've gone through, the last big phase of legal technology was really around analytics, of our data, making sure that we're sort of, how are we getting time efficiencies or cost efficiencies by using technology to help us with those processes. So there's been a lot of decision tree tools. There's been a lot of document analytics or AI analytics tools, and they're all great. And I think there's now a consolidation of what they are and are not good for in the law firm. So I think what we're now going to start to see is how do we leverage the data that we've currently got. One industry that I'm seeing really, reach certain momentum, and again, we can thank we can thank the COVID for this, is CRM systems in law firms. I think there's been a refocus on the importance of customer outreach or customer engagement, knowledge of what our clients are doing and how we're servicing them across the firm, making sure that if we are a full service law firm, making sure we are actually working as a full service law firm and that our clients know that we have other things to offer as opposed to what they might have initially engaged us for. So that CRM, customer engagement, business development side of law firms is really going to see a huge uptake, I think, in the next couple of years.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I think cross-selling of services is going to be really sort of big area, and actually ownership of rather than matter-based or focus on matters more about customer-based type or client-based workflows and what people are doing. Yeah, it's really interesting. I mean, basically, you're seeing a lot of people out there at the moment. They're looking at all these sort of, I guess, there's all these, as you sort of say, spot for choice on different investments and things. And I think where I think it's going with cost pressures there are in the economy as there are now, and also with the tight labour market as well, they're forced into a line where they kind of go, do we need another tool, a new tool, or do we actually basically make everything work better? Because finding people's it's just near impossible.
Yeah, look, I think that is. I mean, the labour market's an interesting one, right? I mean, we're seeing that. We've always talked about it in legal, haven't we? Every conference that I've been to in the last decade has talked about the generational shift in terms of what people expect from their employee or employer. And I think that's really starting to gravitate now and have an impact on strategies from a tech adoption perspective. I think there was a massive gold rush around tech adoption, a lot of misfires. We've seen a lot of people changing platforms, not because they were missold, but because they didn't really realize what they wanted out of the platform when they bought it in the first place. So I think there's been a maturity and a slowdown of that gold rush sort of a focus. Certainly there's been a big movement of, people leaving law firms to move in-house. There's been a big shift, remote working, all those things have sort of introduced different requirements to it. So look, I do think that's certainly going to play a factor in regards to CIOs and I guess IT department, whatever you want to sort of say, if you're whoever is in charge of adoption of technology for you. It is around making sure that we're adopting the right technology, looking at what we currently have, because often they won't know entirely what they currently have in the firm. There is often some little outliers there that the partners have gone and bought with a credit card, and looking at that, making sure that they implement a proper sort of center of excellence in the law firm to say, hey, before we do anything, are we using it properly? Hey, Mr. Partner, before we rush out and supply a client with a different solution because there's an opportunity to do so, did you know we already have this? And can I work with you on making sure we cross that off the list before we go and approach something else?
So I guess within the law firm itself, again, I'm picking on a mid-sized law firm. What kind of people are you talking to in that firm? And I guess who's across developing a business case to buy your platform?
I always talk about Syncly as sort of being the coffee in the morning. You either want it or you don't want a coffee in the morning, right? And I think integration is one of those things where we don't have to go out there and say to people, hey, did you know that there's a thing called integration? Did you know that there's a way of putting data in two locations? I think the pain is already being felt in law firms where they're like, oh my gosh, I'm having to manually download a document and manually upload a document. Then IT hate me for that because there's no audit trail of where it went and who it went to. And I think the pain is already being felt. So from an integration perspective, the awareness of the importance is already there. And so when we talk about the sales, I guess, our prospecting and our sales approach, look, yeah, if it's a mid-tier law firm, they have an IT department, they'll have someone that's in charge of technology there. And we're certainly talking to those guys first and foremost. They'll be the decision makers. They'll be the ones that are trying to fix this fragmented technology stack that they've adopted. And then that flows quickly down to the lawyer, the IT departments, maintaining a vision of, look, we're not going to help you use all of these tools as a law firm. We're going to support them and implement them and make sure they've got the right environment, but they need to be used by you, the end user. So we are talking to the IT departments, but also then, legal administrators, executives and things like that are helping partners with, how they move their data and share their data in and outside the law firm is probably where we're going to see the biggest uptake.
Brilliant. So if people actually want to find more about your solution, we'll leave some links. They reach out to you, talk to you. I mean, basically, is there a demonstration they can get, or is there some more information they get from you?
Yep. Yeah. Obviously, there's the .coms. Obviously, there's LinkedIn. You can find a little bit of information, and I'm well aware that people like to sort of be relatively informed before they speak to anybody in real life these days. So please, we've tried to make that as relative as possible for you to go and do that research. But at the end of the day, if it is something of interest and you do see something there that maybe you think ticks a box, look, contact me. It's, my email address is on the website. Happy to sort of take phone calls, happy to do webinars, but we will be releasing in the next week or two, a 3-minute video of Syncly. It should be that. It's not a 30-minute demonstration. You don't need to lock an hour in your diary. 3 minutes, you'll see what you need to see, and hopefully that'll help you, I guess, take the next steps.
Stu, good on you guys. It's actually fantastic, fast-growing Aussie success story, and more power to you guys for giving it a crack. Honestly, brilliant. Well done, guys.
Thanks, mate. Thank you. Really appreciate it, Dave. Good to chat.
Pleasure.